I thought she was just my roommate's older sister, until the morning she walked out wearing my shirt, and suddenly, I wasn't a kid in her eyes anymore. I woke up thinking it would just be another slow, sleepy morning. The apartment was still half dreaming, sunlight only beginning to slip into a hallway like it didn't want to wake anyone up too abruptly. The kind of soft morning where the world feels gentle, hushed, almost sacred. I stretched and stepped out of my room, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and then stopped. There she was. My roommate's older sister, the woman who always carried herself with this calm grace, who spoke with a voice that made you listen without meaning to, standing in the kitchen. Wearing my shirt. It hung differently on her. On me it was just a casual shirt, nothing special. But on her? It looked effortlessly elegant, the sleeves rolled just slightly, fabric draping over her in a way that made it impossible not to notice. She wasn't trying to be alluring. She wasn't posing. She was just there, in the quiet morning light, and suddenly the whole atmosphere changed. She didn't see me at first. She was stirring her coffee slowly, lost in thought, a faint hum under her breath like she was enjoying the silence. Her hair was tied up in a loose, effortless knot, a few strands falling around her face. She looked comfortable in a way only confident women do, completely at ease in her own presence. For a second, I just stood there, unsure if it was real or if I was still half asleep and imagining something far too cinematic for my life. Then she turned. A soft, natural movement, not dramatic, not staged. And when her eyes met mine, they held this warmth, a hint of amusement, like she already knew exactly what kind of moment this was for me. I tried to play it cool. Failed instantly. "Oh, morning," I said, voice embarrassingly rough with sleep. "Morning," she replied, smiling in a way that felt like sunlight turning directly toward me. My eyes flicked toward the shirt before I could stop myself. She noticed. Of course she noticed. "That's my shirt," I managed. Her expression didn't flicker with embarrassment or explanation like someone younger might. Instead, she glanced down at herself, then back up, soft smile, steady eyes, calm as ever. "It is," she said simply. "I borrowed it. Hope you don't mind." It was such a small moment. Such a simple sentence. But somehow, it pulled the ground just slightly from beneath my feet. She didn't say sorry. Didn't rush. She just acknowledged it with effortless confidence, like borrowing my clothes wasn't strange at all. I shook my head a little too quickly. No, that's fine." She laughed quietly, not mocking, more like she found my flustered effort to act composed genuinely sweet. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Warmer. Like something intimate had silently entered the room and settled between us. And in that moment I realized I wasn't looking at her the same way anymore. And she knew it. I expected the moment to fade, to shake off whatever strange warmth had just settled between us. But it didn't. It followed me into the silence after our awkward little exchange, sitting somewhere in the air like a held breath. She took another sip of her coffee, eyes lingering on me just a fraction too long, not searching, not judging, more like she was trying to read the shift she sensed in me. Then she placed the cup down, slow and intentional, as though she had all the time in the world. "I should change now," she murmured casually, glancing down at the shirt again. "Wouldn't want to steal your wardrobe permanently." There was humor in her voice, but something else beneath it, a softness, a deliberate calm. She walked toward the bathroom, her movements unhurried, confident in the quiet way every step seemed chosen rather than accidental. At the doorway, she paused, hand on the edge of the frame. She didn't turn fully, just looked back over her shoulder, eyes catching mine with a small spark of playful challenge. "If you're really that eager to take it back," she nodded toward the bathroom. "Come in." I froze. It wasn't flirtation thrown carelessly. It wasn't provocative. It was subtle, a test wrapped in a smirk, offered with the kind of ease only someone sure of themselves can manage. I laughed under my breath, trying to hide the sudden tightness in my chest. I didn't say I was that eager. H. She raised a brow amused. So dramatic in the mornings. But she didn't close the door. Instead, she stepped inside, leaving it open, a quiet invitation, not a command. An experiment in trust, curiosity, and whatever this new tension between us was becoming. I followed, but only as far as the doorway. There was something sacred about the barrier. Crossing it felt symbolic, heavier than the moment needed. She seemed to notice that choice. And she approved. Her smile softened, not teasing now, but appreciative. Steam billowed from the shower as she turned the faucet on. She stood near the mirror, pulling her hair loose, letting it fall around her shoulders. No rush. No performance. Only real, quiet intimacy, the kind that happens when someone feels unthreatened in your presence. She began unbuttoning the shirt. Not with seduction, with comfort. Trust. As if she knew I would look away out of respect. And I did. My gaze shifted to the tiles, to the safe nothingness in front of me, while my pulse thudded louder than the running water. Fabric rustled. She breathed softly. Water sprayed. My heart felt too big for my chest. She didn't need to say anything to change the air. The moment spoke on its own. Heavy with awareness. Light with humor. Quietly dangerous in its innocence. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, amused, impossibly calm. You're very polite, she said gently. And very flustered. I exhaled a laugh, swallowing the nerves. You started it. She smiled. I didn't have to see it, I could hear it in her silence. And in that warm, vapor-filled room, with the door still half open and neither of us crossing the invisible line drawn between respect and desire, I realized this wasn't just teasing. Something delicate was beginning, and we both felt it. When she finally stepped out of the bathroom, the world felt strangely still, like the air hadn't fully remembered how to move yet. Her hair was damp, soft strands falling near her face, the kind of effortless natural beauty that only appears when someone isn't trying. She wore simple clothes, nothing dramatic, yet somehow she looked even more elegant than before. Calm. Collected. Entirely in control of herself, and unintentionally of my heartbeat. She held my shirt, freshly folded, between her hands as she approached. Not rushed. Not shy. Just moving with that steady, composed grace she always carried, except today, it felt different. More aware. More intentional. The bathroom door clicked shut behind her, and suddenly the hallway felt too narrow, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Here, she said gently, offering the shirt. But she didn't hand it to me from afar. She walked close. Closer than she needed to. Close enough that I caught the faint scent of her shampoo, something warm and soft, like jasmine and summer mornings. Close enough that her presence filled every inch of space around me. I reached for the shirt, but she didn't let go right away. Her fingers brushed against mine, light, warm, steady, and the touch was small, but it echoed all the way through my chest. You really do get flustered easily, she murmured with a teasing softness. More observation than joke. More affection than mockery. I tried to laugh, but it came out as more of a breath. What can I say? Not every day someone steals my shirt. She tilted her head slightly, studying me. Not in a predatory way, in a gentle, curious way. Like she was trying to understand the shift happening between us just as much as I was. That's not why you're flustered, she said quietly. My pulse stumbled. She knew. Of course she knew. I started, unsure of what I was going to say, or if I should say anything at all. And then she stepped just half a step closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. My breath caught. She looked into my eyes, not demanding anything, just being there, steady and unafraid of closeness. Her fingers grazed my wrist, barely a touch, featherlight, like she was testing gravity between us. And she whispered, "You can relax. I'm not going to bite." I smiled, nervous, heart working overtime. "I didn't think you would." "You did," she said softly. "Or you hoped I might." My breath stalled, caught between a laugh and a confession. She wasn't trying to embarrass me. There was a warmth in her tone that made it feel safe to be seen, even in my clumsy, flustered honesty. She finally released my wrist and stepped back, not breaking eye contact. "Nothing happened," she said lightly. "But something did change." She didn't smirk this time. She didn't tease. She just knew. And the truth was painfully simple. Nothing had happened between us, yet somehow, everything suddenly felt different. By evening, the apartment had fallen into that peaceful quiet that only comes after a long day. Lights dimmed, city sounds fading into a distant hum, the kind of calm that makes ordinary moments feel like they matter more. She was in the kitchen again, sleeves rolled, hair loosely tied back, preparing dinner like it was second nature. Not rushed, not trying to impress, just moving with ease, like she belonged in calm spaces. I offered to help, mostly to feel useful, and maybe to avoid overthinking the morning, but she smiled softly and handed me the plates instead. "Set the table. That's more than enough." Her voice wasn't commanding, it was gentle. Familiar. Too familiar for someone who wasn't supposed to feel this close. Soon, we sat across from each other, warm food between us, soft jazz humming from her phone like background breathing. Candlelight flickered. We didn't light it for romance. It was just something she always did. But tonight it felt different. It felt shared. At first, we talked about harmless things, my college classes, her work, the movie playing quietly on mute in the background. But conversations with some people have layers. They start small, then deepen without warning. She rested her chin lightly on her hand, watching me with eyes that felt like they saw too much and judged nothing. "You're quieter tonight," she observed. "I'm thinking," I admitted. "About what?" I almost said. "You." Instead, I smiled weakly. "Today. How strange it felt. In a good way, I mean." She didn't laugh or tease this time. Her expression softened, steady, thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "Sometimes," she said, stirring her food absent-mindedly, "life surprises you in ways you didn't prepare for. And it can be unsettling. Even when it's gentle." There it was, the honesty beneath her calm surface. She wasn't untouchable. She wasn't just the composed, confident woman I admired from a distance. She was human. She felt things too, quietly, carefully. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Do things surprise you often?" She let out the smallest breath, something like a laugh, but sadder. "Not anymore," she said. "I think, when you get older, you stop expecting magic. You learn to be realistic. Practical. Sensible." Her fingers brushed the edge of her wine glass, slow, thoughtful. "But sometimes, out of nowhere, something reminds you you're still capable of feeling things deeply." Her eyes lifted to mine. Not flirty. Not dramatic. Just honest, and that honesty knocked the air out of me. I swallowed, voice low. "And is today one of those times?" A pause, long enough to feel dangerous, soft enough to feel safe. "Maybe," she whispered. I didn't move. She didn't either. But the space between us shifted, filled with unspoken warmth, uncertain hope, and the quiet recognition that something gentle was forming where either of us had expected it. Then she reached across the table, fingertips brushing mine, not grabbing, not claiming, just touching, as if to say, "I feel it too. And I'm not afraid to let it exist." Dinner ended in silence, but it wasn't empty. It felt like a promise neither of us dared name yet, after dinner, neither of us seemed eager to return to our separate routines. The apartment felt unusually alive, like some invisible thread connected the rooms, the lights, the spaces between footsteps. As if the day had placed a quiet permission on the night. You can feel this, you just don't have to name it yet. She rinsed a plate slowly, lost in thought, the warm light catching the water on her wrists. I pretended to tidy the table, though there wasn't much left to do. Really, I was just buying time, or maybe stalling because I didn't want the evening to end. She wiped her hands and looked at the balcony door, city lights glowing beyond the glass. "Come," she murmured. "Let's get some air." Her voice was soft, but something in it held weight, like she needed the outside quiet to match the quiet inside her chest. We stepped out into the cool evening. The city stretched beneath us, a constellation of windows and headlights, the distant hum of life just small enough to make the moment feel private. Wind brushed against us, carrying the faint scent of rain and something calming, like nights when the world finally stops rushing. She rested her hands on the railing, shoulders relaxed, looking out at everything yet seeming deep inside her own thoughts. I stood beside her, close enough to feel her presence, not touching but almost drawn forward by gravity alone. For a while, we didn't speak, and silence had never felt so full. Then she turned her head slightly, studying me in the low amber light. Her eyes were soft, not searching, not testing, just seeing me. Truly seeing me. "You have this way of looking at things," she whispered, as if admitting a secret. "Like you're not in a hurry to understand them. Like you'd rather feel them first." I didn't look away. How else do we really understand anything worth understanding? Her breath caught, so faint, but I heard it. Something shifted in her posture, not closer, but more open, like she'd just given me a part of herself without meaning to. She reached out, just a simple gesture, brushing a tiny crease from my shirt near my collar. Innocent on the surface, yet it felt like her fingers traced the edge of a boundary between what we were and what we maybe wanted to be. Her touch lingered a beat too long. My heart felt impossibly loud. She was close, close enough that if I leaned forward even slightly, our foreheads might meet. We held eye contact, deep, still, honest. No games. No pretense. For a fleeting second, the world narrowed to the space between our breaths, warm, fragile, trembling with possibility. Then she exhaled, soft and steady, as if grounding both of us. "Not like this," she whispered, not pulling away, but anchoring the moment gently. "Not rushed. Not borrowed from impulse." Her thumb brushed my collar once more, affectionate and careful. "You deserve something real." "So do I." I swallowed, not disappointed, strangely relieved. Because in that refusal, there was promise, not rejection. She wasn't stepping back from me. She was stepping towards something that needed patience. The wind moved around us. Lights flickered below. And in the quiet, I felt it clearly, this wasn't the end of a moment. It was the beginning of something we weren't ready to break by moving too fast. The next morning came quietly. The kind of morning where sunlight moves slow and careful across the walls, like it's trying not to disturb anything fragile. And something was fragile now. Something between us. I woke earlier than usual and sat on the couch, pretending to read but mostly, waiting. Thinking. Feeling the weight of every moment from the night before. The hesitation. The closeness. Her voice saying not like this. It wasn't rejection. It was respect. Maybe even care. But uncertainty has a way of filling quiet rooms. Then I heard soft footsteps. She appeared from the hallway with slightly messy hair, a light sweater, and the peaceful look of someone who slept deeply, or someone who stayed awake longer than she expected. For a second, either of us spoke. But the silence didn't feel awkward, it felt full, like we were both adjusting to the new reality we'd stepped into together. She walked over and sat beside me on the couch, not far, not too close. just near enough that the cushion shifted under her, the warmth of her presence settling naturally into the space. "You're up early," she said gently. "So are you." She smiled faintly. "Didn't sleep right away." "Me neither." A moment passed, soft, vulnerable. She tucked her hair behind her ear, a small sign she was gathering courage, not just making casual conversation. "About last night," she began. I swallowed. "Yeah." She looked not at me, but at her hands resting loosely in her lap, elegant, steady, but unsure in a way I'd never seen before. "I don't regret it," she said softly. "The closeness. The moment. I just—" her voice dipped slightly. "I needed to make sure we weren't rushing into something just because it felt intense." "You don't owe me an explanation," I whispered. "I do," she replied, lifting her eyes to mine. "Because I felt something. I feel something. And I don't want to pretend I don't." The admission hit harder than anything else could have, not dramatic, not whispered like a movie line. Spoken plainly, like truth deserved simplicity. I took a breath, steadying my voice. "I wasn't confused last night." My fingers curled lightly around the book in my hand, grounding myself. "I wasn't caught up or overwhelmed. I knew what I was feeling." "What were you feeling?" she asked, not flirtatious, not testing. Genuinely wanting to know. I turned toward her fully, meeting her eyes with nothing held back. "That I don't just find you beautiful," I said quietly. "I admire you. I respect you. And every time you look at me like I'm someone worth noticing, it does something to me." Her breath caught, a tiny break in her composure, but the most human one I'd seen. She reached out, gently touching my cheek with her fingertips, not claiming, not pulling me closer, just connecting. Her thumb brushed my jaw, warm and trembling only slightly. "I just don't want to hurt you," she whispered. "Or myself." "You won't," I said. "Not if we move honestly." And slowly. She held my gaze, searching, believing, afraid, hopeful all at once, then nodded. "Then let's not rush what could matter." When she pulled her hand away, it wasn't distance. It was a promise: we are choosing this, not falling into it by accident. And for the first time, I didn't feel nervous or uncertain. I felt steady. Anchored. Like whatever was unfolding between us had room to breathe now. Like we finally knew the path, and we would walk it together. There are moments in life that arrive without warning, moments that tilt the world just enough to make you realize you'll never see someone the same way again. For us, that moment didn't happen in a dramatic confession or a cinematic kiss. It happened in silence, late evening, soft light, and the quiet understanding that we were standing at the edge of something neither of us fully planned for. It was the night after that almost moment in the hallway. The memory still sat between us, warm and fragile. I thought she might avoid me, pretend nothing had happened, chalk it up to impulse. But instead, she knocked on my door. Not gently. Not nervously. Calm. Intentional. "You free?" she asked. Her voice held none of that teasing tone she used when she wanted to throw me off. No playful smirk. No testing. She just looked steady. "Sure." And it made my chest tighten. We ended up sitting in the living room, the lights low, the quiet hum of the building around us. The world felt slower then. Softer. She didn't reach for me. I didn't inch closer. We simply existed in the same space, breathing the same hesitant air. "I didn't plan for any of this," she admitted finally, fingers curled around a mug she hadn't taken a single sip from. "You're younger. Technically off limits. And yet, here we are." Her honesty hung in the room like warmth rising from a candle. I swallowed, heart thudding, but stayed still. "We don't have to rush anything." She looked at me then, really looked. As if reading every unsaid thought behind my eyes. You say that like you're not already halfway pulled into this. I am, I said, because truth doesn't always wait for caution. But I'd rather walk than sprint. Something in her softened, shoulders relaxing, breath easing out like she'd been holding it for days. The tension between us shifted from electricity to something deeper, something that felt like trust beginning to take root. You know, she murmured, I always thought younger guys were impulsive, restless. But you, she shook her head with a small, disbelieving laugh. You stop before I need to stop. You wait before I ask you to. That's rare. I didn't know what to do with the warmth that bloomed behind those words except let it settle in me. Maybe I just want this to be right. And if it isn't? She asked quietly. Then we'll know by walking. Not jumping. Silence again, but this time, it wasn't uncertainty. It was connection, settling in like a slow dawn. She didn't touch me. She didn't lean in. She simply reached out and placed her hand beside mine, not overlapping, not claiming, just close enough that I could feel her warmth. An invitation, not a demand. A beginning, not a rush. We'll take our time, she said softly. And that night, time didn't feel like a barrier. It felt like a promise. If you've ever felt that quiet pull towards someone you weren't supposed to fall for, that slow, gravity-like connection that you couldn't ignore. Stay with us. This isn't just temptation. It's two lives learning how to meet in the middle. Speech Balloon 1 Part 8. Comment, continue, and I'll bring you the next chapter.